Imagine spending decades giving everything, your time, energy, patience, and sacrifices to family, friends, and even strangers. Now in your later years, you pause and wonder, where did all that energy go? You look around and realize that life moves forward, and few people truly give back. It is not that they don't care, but they are consumed by their own lives, just as you once were. Chasing validation will only leave you exhausted and disappointed. Instead, what if peace, joy, and fulfillment have been within your grasp all along? What if the secret to a meaningful old age isn't in the recognition of others, but in reclaiming your energy, prioritizing yourself, and embracing the freedom that comes with setting boundaries? This video will help you rediscover what truly matters, you. Hey, let's talk for a second. You've spent your whole life putting others first, your family, your job, your friends, and now you find yourself wondering, when is it my turn? Society teaches us that being selfless is the right thing to do. But what if I told you that focusing on yourself is not selfish, it is smart? Think about it. You have given years, even decades, to make sure everyone else is okay. You were the one they turned to, the one who held things together. But now, where is everyone? Why do you feel like you are standing on the sidelines of your own life? The truth is, the world does not stop for anyone. If you do not take control of your peace, no one will do it for you. That is why in this video I am going to show you how shifting your energy inward, embracing silence, and setting boundaries can transform your later years into the most peaceful and fulfilling time of your life. Stick with me, because what you are about to hear is going to change the way you live. Starting today, let's talk about something real. One of the biggest mistakes people make as they age is believing that their sacrifices will be remembered, that their children, friends, or society will pause and say, "Wow, you really did so much for us." But life does not work that way. People are busy, just like you once were. It is not personal, it is just the way the world turns. The real issue is not just feeling overlooked. It is the expectation that the world will recognize everything you have done. And let's be honest, that expectation only leads to disappointment. If you spend your later years waiting for validation, trying to stay relevant in other people's lives, you will exhaust yourself. But here is the good news. You do not need their validation or permission to live well. This is your time to regain your energy, peace, and self-respect. Let's discuss 5 essential mindset shifts that will help you live your later years with confidence, clarity, and true happiness. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves as we get older is that our sacrifices will be remembered. We believe that all the years we spent working hard, raising families, and helping others will somehow come back to us as gratitude, respect, or even just a simple thank you. But here is the reality. Life does not work like that. Think about it. When you were younger, were you constantly stopping to think about how much your parents, grandparents, or mentors sacrificed for you? Maybe sometimes, but most of the time you were busy building your own life, dealing with your own struggles just like everyone else. That is the way of the world. It is not personal, it is just how life moves forward. Let me give you an example. There was a man who spent his entire life working hard to give his kids a better future. He paid for their education, supported them through their struggles, and made sure they had every opportunity he never did. Now in his later years, he finds himself sitting alone in a quiet house, waiting for a phone call that rarely comes. His kids love him, sure, but they are busy with their own families and their own problem, and he feels forgotten. This happens more often than people want to admit. A mother who spent years putting her children first now watches as they build their own lives, visiting only when it is convenient. A retired teacher who dedicated decades to guiding students now finds that no one reaches out to say, "You made a difference." A loyal friend who always made time for others now realizes that no one is making time for them. So what do? You let go of the illusion that recognition will come. You stop waiting for people to appreciate you and start appreciating yourself. The hard truth is that if you keep looking for validation from others, you will only end up feeling disappointed, frustrated, and emotionally drained. Now, this does not mean people do not care about you. It just means they are consumed with their own lives, just like you once were. Instead of resenting them, take this as a sign that it is time to shift your focus. The sooner you let go of expectations, the sooner you find peace. When you stop seeking recognition from others, you start to recognize yourself. You start to see the value in who you are, not in what others acknowledge. Let's talk about what happens when you make this shift. When you stop waiting for others to appreciate you, you begin to prioritize your own happiness. You start investing in activities that bring you joy rather than waiting for someone else to invite you into their world. You start doing things because they matter to you, not because you hope someone will notice. Think about a retired woman who always puts her family first. She cooked, she cleaned, and she supported everyone through their ups and downs. Then one day she realized that she had lost herself in the process. So she took a step back. She started learning to paint, joined a local book club, and took long walks just for the sake of enjoying the fresh air. And guess what? She felt alive again. Not because someone finally acknowledged her sacrifices, but because she finally acknowledged herself. Here is another example. A man who spent his career being the go-to person for advice, leadership, and guidance finds himself retired with no one knocking on his door for wisdom anymore. At first he feels lost, like his purpose is gone, but then he shifts his perspective. Instead of waiting for people to come to him, he starts writing. He documents his life lessons not for others but for himself, and through that he finds fulfillment. The takeaway is simple. The quality of your later years will not be determined by how many people appreciate you. It will be determined by how much you appreciate yourself. Stop measuring your worth by how much others recognize you. Instead, measure it by how deeply you value your own existence. Think about this. Imagine two people in their 70s. One spends every day waiting for phone calls from their children, checking their messages constantly and feeling frustrated when no one reaches out. The other, they wake up, take a walk, and spend time doing what they love: gardening, reading, traveling. They don't sit around wondering why no one is calling. They are too busy enjoying their life. Which person do you think is happier? Happiness in old age is not about how many people appreciate you. It is about whether you appreciate yourself enough to make your own life fulfilling. It is about doing things for yourself, not to impress or please others. So what can you do today? First, take a deep breath and remind yourself, I do not need external validation to know my worth. Then write down 3 things that bring you joy, things you want to do for yourself, not for anyone else. And most importantly, start doing them. If you have spent your entire life giving, now is the time to give to yourself. Let go of the illusion that others will one day turn around and recognize everything you did. Instead, start recognizing yourself. Because the only approval you truly need, the only one that matters, comes from within. Let's talk about something most people overlook: the power of silence. When we are young, we feel the need to speak, to prove ourselves, to justify our choices, to make sure others understand our point of view. But as we grow older, we begin to realize something important. Most people are not listening to understand. They are listening to respond. And that changes everything. Think about it. How many times have you tried to give advice to your kids or grandkids, only for them to smile politely and do the opposite? How often have you explained something important, only to realize the other person was just waiting for their turn to talk? It happens all the time, and the truth is, arguing, explaining, or trying to convince people is often wasted energy. That is why silence is so powerful. Let me give you an example. There was a retired teacher, a woman who had spent her entire career guiding and educating young minds. After retirement, she found herself constantly trying to give advice to her children and grandchildren. She meant well, but every time she shared her wisdom, they either dismissed it or ignored her completely. One day, she decided to stop offering advice unless she was asked. Instead of telling them what to do, she listened. She observed. And something interesting happened. Over time, her family started coming to her, asking for her thoughts. Because she no longer pushed her advice on them, they valued her words more when she did speak. That is the power of silence. When you stop trying to be heard all the time, people start to listen when you do speak. Now let's talk about another important aspect of silence: knowing when to walk away from pointless conversations. How many times have you found yourself in an argument that leads nowhere? Maybe it was with a stubborn friend, a difficult relative, or even a stranger who just wanted to prove a point. You lay out your thoughts logically, you explain your position, but they are not interested in understanding. They just want to be right. At some point you have to ask yourself, is this worth my energy? More often than not, the answer is no. A man once told me about a time he spent an entire evening arguing with an old friend about politics. Hours of back and forth, facts, opinions, frustration. The next morning, he realized something. Nothing had changed. His friend still believed what he believed, and so did he. All that time and energy had been wasted on an argument that had no real outcome. From that day on, he decided he would not engage in debates that only led to frustration. If someone was truly interested in a discussion, he would talk, but if they just wanted to argue, he would walk away. That is another lesson in silence. Not every argument needs your voice. Not every disagreement deserves your energy. Here is something else to think about. Silence is not just about not speaking. It is also about what you choose to listen to. In a world full of noise, negativity, and distractions, silence allows you to tune into what truly matters. When you spend less time reacting to the world and more time listening to yourself, you gain clarity. You start to recognize what is worth your energy and what is not. A woman I knew used to spend hours every day watching the news, scrolling through negative headlines, and arguing with people online. She was constantly stressed, constantly anxious. One day she decided to step back. She turned off the news for a week. She stopped engaging in online debates. She used that time to read, to take walks, to simply sit in silence. And guess what? She felt lighter, more at peace, because she realized that not every battle is hers to fight. That is another gift of silence. It helps you filter out the noise and focus on what truly matters. Think about the people in your life who talk constantly, filling every silence with words. Do they seem at peace? Or do they seem restless, like they are always trying to prove something? Now think about the people who know when to stay quiet. They do not speak just to fill the space. When they do talk, people listen. That is the power of knowing when to use silence. Silence is also an incredible tool for self-reflection. When you stop talking so much, you begin to hear your own thoughts more clearly. You start to understand yourself better. You notice things about the world that you never paid attention to before. You develop patience, wisdom, and a sense of inner peace. So, what can you do to embrace the power of silence in your life? First, practice pausing before you respond. If someone says something that upsets you, take a deep breath before answering. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Second, learn to listen more than you speak. You will be surprised how much you learn when you stop trying to fill the silence. And third, choose what you listen to. Cut out negativity. Surround yourself with peace. Remember, silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is power. And when used correctly, it can transform your life in ways you never imagined. Let's talk about something a lot of people struggle with: setting boundaries. For years, you have been the dependable one, the go-to person in your family, the one who says yes even when you are tired. You have spent decades making sure everyone else was comfortable, happy, and cared for, but now you are starting to feel drained, exhausted, even a little resentful. Why? Because you have been giving and giving, but where are the boundaries? Here is the truth. Boundaries are not selfish. They are necessary. Think about it this way. If you do not set limits on your time, energy, and emotional well-being, people will keep taking from you without even realizing they are draining you, not because they are bad people, but because they have gotten used to you always saying yes. Let me give you an example. A retired grandmother I know loves her grandchildren. She adores spending time with them. But one day her daughter started expecting her to babysit all the time. At first she did not mind. Then it became a weekly expectation. Then it became several days a week. Before she knew it, she had lost her own free time, her hobbies, and even her rest. She felt guilty saying no, but she was exhausted. Finally, she sat her daughter down and said, "I love spending time with them, but I need time for myself too. I can help, but I cannot be the full-time babysitter." At first her daughter was surprised, but she understood, and from then on, things changed. The lesson here? People will take as much as you allow them to. It is up to you to set the limit. Boundaries do not just apply to time and responsibilities. They apply to finances too. Ever had a relative who always borrows money but never pays it back? A friend who constantly asks for help but never returns the favor? A retired man I knew worked hard his entire life. He saved carefully so that he could enjoy his later years, but as soon as family members realized he had a nest egg, they started asking for loans. At first he was generous, but then he noticed something. The more he gave, the more they asked, and when he finally said no, they acted like he was the bad guy. That is when he realized he had to stop feeling guilty for protecting what he worked for. Saying no to financial requests does not make you selfish, it makes you responsible. Another important area where boundaries matter: emotional energy. Have you ever been someone's unpaid therapist? Always listening to their problems, always offering support, but never receiving the same in return? You need to protect your emotional energy just as much as your time and money. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your mind and heart. A woman I knew had a friend who constantly called her to complain about everything: her job, her family, her stress. It was always negative. Every time the phone rang, she felt drained just thinking about answering. One day, she realized this was not friendship. This was emotional exhaustion. So she started limiting the time she spent listening. She stopped picking up every call. And guess what? She felt lighter. She felt more at peace. She realized she was allowed to protect her own mental well-being. The biggest lesson here: setting boundaries is about teaching people how to treat you. If you always say yes, people assume you are always available. If you never say no, they assume you never mind. But when you start setting limits, people learn to respect them. Some may resist at first. Some may even get upset. But the people who truly care about you will understand. And the ones who do not, they were only there for what they could take. Let's take another example. A man in his 70s always attended every family gathering. Even when he was exhausted, he felt obligated. He did not want to disappoint anyone. Then one day he decided to stay home. He wanted a quiet evening for himself. At first, his relatives were surprised, but eventually they accepted that he needed his space. The result? He felt happier, more in control of his own time, because for the first time he put himself first. So, how do you start setting boundaries? First, practice saying no without explaining. You do not need an excuse to protect your time and energy. Simply saying, "I can't do that," is enough. Second, pay attention to how you feel when you agree to something. Do you feel excited and willing, or do you feel drained and obligated? If it is the latter, reconsider. Third, start small. If you have never set boundaries before, it can feel uncomfortable at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. Fourth, remind yourself that you are not responsible for other people's reactions. If someone gets upset because you set a boundary, that is their problem, not yours. And most importantly, remember this: you have spent your life taking care of others. Now it is time to take care of yourself. The people who truly love you will respect that, and the ones who don't? Well, that just means they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. You have every right to prioritize yourself, to protect your time, your energy, and your peace. So start today. Decide what you are no longer willing to tolerate. Say no to things that drain you. Say yes to yourself, because if you do not choose yourself, who will? Let's talk about something that too many people ignore: investing in yourself. For years, you have been taking care of others. You put your family first, your job first, your responsibilities first, and now you look around and realize that somewhere along the way, you forgot about yourself. You forgot what it feels like to do something just for you, something that brings you joy, something that makes you feel alive. Here's the thing: investing in yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Think about it. If you spend your whole life giving everything to others and never taking time for yourself, what happens? You burn out, you start feeling resentful. You feel like life is just passing you by while you sit on the sidelines. But guess what? It's not too late to change that. You can still take back control and start living for yourself. Let me give you an example. There was a woman who spent her entire life raising her children and supporting her husband's career. She was a great mother, a loving wife, a dependable friend, but the moment she became an empty nester, she felt lost. She had spent so many years defining herself by the people around her that she no longer knew who she was. Then, one day, she decided to change that. She picked up painting, something she loved as a child but had abandoned years ago. At first it felt strange, uncomfortable. But the more she painted, the more she felt like herself again. She realized that her identity wasn't just tied to being a mother or a wife, it was tied to the things that made her happy. That is what investing in yourself looks like. It is about rediscovering the things that bring you joy and making them a priority. Now let's talk about another example. A man I knew spent his entire career working long hours, making sacrifices, saving money, building a future for his family. When he retired, he expected to finally relax and enjoy life. But instead, he found himself feeling restless. He had spent so many years being busy that he didn't know what to do with himself. Then, one day, he made a decision. Instead of waiting for life to entertain him, he started traveling. He visited places he had always dreamed of seeing. He met new people, he experienced different cultures, and for the first time in decades he felt truly alive. That's what happens when you invest in yourself. You stop waiting for life to happen to you, and you start making life happen. Investing in yourself doesn't just mean picking up hobbies or traveling, it also means taking care of your health. So many people neglect their bodies as they age. They assume that getting older automatically means getting weaker, slower, more tired. But that's not true. The people who stay active, who eat well, who make an effort to move their bodies, they age better, they feel better, they have more energy. Think about it. Would you rather spend your later years feeling exhausted, in pain, unable to enjoy life? Or would you rather feel strong, capable, and full of energy? A woman I knew in her 70s decided one day that she was tired of feeling sluggish. She started walking every morning, just a few minutes at first. Then she built up to longer walks, then light stretching, then yoga. Within months, she felt stronger, more confident, and more alive than she had in years. She didn't do it for anyone else, she did it for herself. And that made all the difference. Investing in yourself also means surrounding yourself with people who bring you joy. Have you ever noticed how some people drain your energy while others lift you up? It is time to start being intentional about who you spend your time with. If someone constantly brings negativity into your life, if they make you feel exhausted, if they take more than they give, it is okay to step back. It is okay to choose peace over obligation. A retired man I know once told me, "I used to think I had to maintain every friendship, every family connection, even if it made me miserable. Then I realized my time is mine. I get to choose how I spend it." And that was the moment he started living for himself. So what does this all mean for you? It means that starting today, you have permission to put yourself first. Ask yourself, what is something you have always wanted to do but never made time for? Maybe it is learning an instrument, maybe it is writing a book, maybe it is simply taking more time to enjoy nature. Whatever it is, do it. You have spent a lifetime giving to others, now it is time to give to yourself. The happiest people in their later years are the ones who choose to invest in their own happiness. They do not sit around waiting for others to make them feel fulfilled. They take action, they make choices that bring them joy. So, I will ask you again, what is something you have always wanted to do? Take one step toward it today, because life is too short to keep putting yourself last. You deserve happiness, you deserve fulfillment, and the only person who can truly give it to you is you. Let's be honest, if you don't choose yourself, who will? For years, you have been the one holding everything together. You put everyone else first, your kids, your spouse, your job, your responsibilities. And now, after all that, do you ever stop and wonder, when is it my turn? The truth is, the world keeps moving. No one is going to suddenly pause and say, "You've done enough, now it's time for you." People won't magically start prioritizing you if you don't start prioritizing yourself. But here's the good news. You have the power to change that. You don't have to wait for permission to live well. You don't have to sit in the background hoping for recognition. You don't have to keep giving and giving until there is nothing left. Starting today, you get to take control. You get to set boundaries, protect your energy, invest in what makes you happy. You get to live life on your terms, not because someone else said you deserve it, but because you know you do. Think about this. Imagine someone in their 70s who spends every day waiting for a phone call from their kids, feeling frustrated when it doesn't come. Now imagine someone else the same age who wakes up, goes for a walk, reads, pursues a hobby, and enjoys life. They aren't waiting for others to make them happy, they make themselves happy. Which one do you want to be? You have spent a lifetime giving, now it's time to give to yourself, to embrace peace, to choose joy, to finally truly live. Because the only person who can give you the life you deserve is you. Let's take a moment to reflect. You have spent years giving to others, your time, your energy, your love, and maybe along the way you forgot about yourself. But now, as you enter this new phase of life, it is time to shift your focus. Not because you no longer care about others, but because you finally recognize that your well-being matters too. Let's go over what we have learned. First, stop chasing recognition. The world may not always acknowledge your sacrifices, but that does not mean they were in vain. Second, embrace the power of silence. Not every argument is worth your energy. Not every explanation needs to be given. Third, set boundaries. Your time and peace are valuable. Treat them that way. Fourth, invest in yourself. Find what brings you joy and make it a priority. And finally, choose peace. Because at the end of the day, that is what truly matters. So what happens next? That is up to you. Will you continue waiting for others to prioritize you, or will you take that responsibility into your own hands? The choice is yours, and if you ask me, I think it is time you chose yourself. If this message spoke to you, do something about it. Think about someone in your life who needs to hear this, maybe a friend, a sibling, or even a parent. Share this with them. Let them know they are not alone in feeling this way. And while you are at it, take one step today toward choosing yourself. Maybe that means setting a boundary, saying no to something that drains you, or simply reminding yourself that you are worthy of happiness. If you want more content like this, subscribe and stay connected, because this is just the beginning of your journey toward peace, fulfillment, and a life that finally belongs to you.